The document that we chose was Common Sense by Thomas Paine, and we chose this document because it was one of the first documents that was simple enough for the majority of Americans to read, and it also persuaded many of these Americans to join the revolutionary cause. At the time, since there was many Enlightenment-focused ideas that were often very heavy in wording, many Americans that didn't have a very high education often had no opinion or say in the matter at all. And so common sense was really helpful in not only creating and allowing more supporters for the revolution, but also just giving Americans a voice in the opinion. And it was also chosen because of the importance that the text had on how to run the future government, and the ideas inspired many future texts that used his democratic principles as basic rights that would be given in the new government. And that also essentially ties into its universal significance because of the fact that it laid the foundations for the formation of America's central belief of republicanism over monarchy. And this could be expressed in his book and the quotes such as, "In the early ages of the world, according to the scripture chronology, there were no kings, the consequences of which there were no wars. It is the pride of kings which throws mankind into confusion." And so these liberal ideas that were shared to the public ultimately represented the foundations for the beliefs on how to run the future American government, and how it was important to have a weaker central government. And this is also expressed in the quote, "Government, like dress, is the badge of lost innocence. The palaces of kings are built on the ruins of bowers of paradise." So these two quotes represent how government of America should have a less controlling government, which was the foundation for the democratic principles that were written down later for the Declaration of Independence and other texts, such as the Constitution. And so essentially common sense and the democratic ideas that were written by Thomas Paine created the philosophy that America should follow throughout its government, and helped settle future debates on how democratic the government should be.
For the non-artistic artifact, we chose the Liberty Bell. This artifact is a bell commissioned by the Pennsylvania Assembly in 1751 to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the Charter of Privileges. This document served as the first constitution of Pennsylvania. It became of even more symbolic importance when abolitionists adopted it as their symbol in the fight against slavery. This object was chosen due to its importance in American history as a symbol of not only the beginnings of America, but also how the idea of freedom has evolved from its early days. As a relic of a past time, it has sustained its place as an important artifact of how the country came to be, and how it has changed over time. By serving its place as a representation of American independence, the Liberty Bell has promoted ideas of universal freedoms and rights, as expressed in the first Constitution it was made to commemorate. This artifact is a universally significant object, as it has come to represent freedom in both the United States as well as beyond. Originally being a symbol of the American Revolution and its success, as well as the newfound freedoms of the previous 13 colonies, it became a symbol of freedom and rights for some of the nation's most vulnerable members. It represents a new, redefined form of freedom, one that citizens are endowed with at birth all over the world, not just in the United States.
The art artifact we chose was Washington Crossing the Delaware River by Emanuel Lutz. In this painting, George Washington is depicted as standing proudly and ready, while the Continental Army is rowing to cross the Delaware River through the harsh winter of 1776. This was a planned secret attack on the British that marked the first significant victory for the Continental Army. So we chose this painting as our art artifact because it represents the effort that was dedicated to fighting the war against the British, but also the beginning of America as a power and the pride and patriotism that came out of this win. And this pride can be seen as Since this was occurring in winter, Washington most likely would have been freezing and probably not standing so happily and proudly, but the Americans that were so proud of this victory depicted this win as something very patriotic, which shows very significant, important, and to this day it is universally significant as it reminds citizens of the fight for republicanism and independence. This painting really shows the willingness of Americans to fight for what they believe in and to stand up for what is right. And in addition, it depicts the importance of the fight for democracy and how valuable it is to the American ideals and government, and how America would also be willing to fight for democracy for other countries in the 20th century when they have grown as a power.
Thomas Edison, born in Milan, Ohio in 1847, was one of the most well-known and successful American inventors. Through inventions such as the incandescent light bulb, the motion picture camera, and the phonograph, Edison expresses creativity and innovation even through the tumultuous periods of American history. This person was chosen as a representation of the success of American ingenuity. The United States has had many people who have had a significant impact not only scientifically, but culturally, and none can be more true for Thomas Edison. He was a recipient of a multitude of awards, including the Navy Distinguished Service Medal, Congressional Gold Medal, and acceptance into the National Academy of Sciences. As the inventor of numerous devices that have revolutionized communication and quality of life all over the world, Thomas Edison represents the boundless innovation and ingenuity shared by the American people. He personifies the immense significance of such revolutionary ideas and concepts, and inspires the same creativity in others worldwide.
The event we chose was the Apollo 11 moon landing. And so during this time, during Kennedy's presidency, it was a clear goal of his to be the first country to put a man on the moon and to ultimately win the space race against the Soviet Union. And so when the Soviet Union successfully launched Sputnik into Earth's orbit in 1957, Kennedy and the government put a lot more attention on the space race, and organizations such as NASA to be intensely funded. And the Apollo 11 space landing in 1969 marked Kennedy and NASA's success, which is why we chose this event, in addition to the fact that it allowed the nation to prove itself once again to the world and marked itself as a world power. And it was also an important aspect of the Cold War that allowed an additional victory for the United States against the Soviet Union. And this event has a lot of universal significance because not only did the United States prove itself to be another world power to the Soviet Union, but also just to other nations watching all around the world. By landing on the moon, the Americans had essentially won the space race and continued and paved the way for space technology for many years to come with different Apollo missions. It proved to other nations that America was technologically and scientifically well advanced compared to others. And not only had this mission achieved Kennedy's goal, but it is still a very significant aspect as the mystery of space intensified the curiosity of scientists all over the world that would lead to scientific explorations in the future. And without the Apollo space landing, this curiosity would have probably not been as further developed. So this marks this mission as having large universal significance.